without park, without checker flag. That's a fine. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and as always, alongside me is co-host Steve Mezz. If it's your first time listening to this podcast, it is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself has been providing news, notes, and analysis to fans on social media since 2014. So go ahead and pull those belts tight and hang on as we throw the green flag on our recap of Ryan Blaney's run in the Coca-Cola 600 this past weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Steve, we just got fresh off the longest ever by miles Coca-Cola 600 in history. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be our longest podcast ever, but we'll get to some of those details. But man, I mean, talk about an action-packed week for us, which we'll get to those details too. But just for NASCAR as a sport, coming off the All-Star race, all the buzz around Charlotte, the Truck Series, from the Truck Series race to the Xfinity Series race to the Cup Series race, drama at the end of every single one of those, amazing racing throughout. I don't think, Marcus Smith and everyone at Charlotte Motor Speedway really could have imagined anything better for this past weekend.
Yeah, Charlotte delivers. It's quite the track. The mile and a half there, the banking and the turns, everything is just right, and it always seems to be conducive to good racing. And really, this new car operated quite well at Charlotte. We saw a lot of passing. A lot of guys got up behind guys and figured out a way to get around them. If they were faster than them, there wasn't any of this stuff where you take away their line and give them dirty air and they can't get by you. If they were faster, they got by you. And it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, my concern, this was a long race. They started around 5:30, 6 o'clock, ended just shy of midnight. I was concerned because very early on, we had some of the tire issues that we've been seeing teams have with like left rear tires kind of blowing out. Again, we've talked before about it most likely having to do with setup and air pressures and things like that. But what that was causing was short runs. Like for the first 200 miles of this race, or 200 laps of this race, it was just tons of short runs. I think maybe the longest run they got into was about 30 plus laps. And, I'm like, and this racing is awesome. These guys are still bunched up. And then it got me to thinking, and I could pose this question to you, and I posed it into our Discord, I believe, as well. Do you think that, the racing was so good because there was really only about 2 stretches of long runs, so they were going to be bunched up all the time? Or do you think the new car was really conducive to the mile and a half setup that Charlotte has?
I think it was conducive, but on the other hand, with all the spin outs and the restarts and the spin outs and the restarts, it caused a lot more action because, on a restart, that's where everything seems to happen, where you can gain a couple initial spots right off the bat. So it was just that combination of everything, and it's like, not that it was there were a couple crashes, but there were a lot of single car spins, a lot of just guys just spinning out on their own, just getting into 2 or something and losing it. And, this is, what people were talking about with this car, that it was going to take a while for people to get a hold of it and figure out how to drive it. And it was difficult to drive. So, we saw a lot of that, and it was what kind of made it more interesting as the night went on. I know it made for a long night, but on the other hand, a couple of more restarts at the end, cautions breed cautions. They did have a green flag pit cycle or 2,
Yep.
But what did we have, like 20 cautions, I think it was, as the night went on. Only 20 cars left running at the end of the night, which is amazing amount of attrition. But overall, for the whole experience, if you were buckled in and ready to go, it was a great night. Now, those of us who were watching certain guys, it was a little bit shorter night, and I kind of lucked out because I didn't have to worry about getting writer's cramp.
So like I said, amazing racing throughout the weekend, all 3 series. So why don't we go ahead? Let's jump right back into, as I said, our recap of Ryan Blaney's run in the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And as it always has been all year long, starts here with practice and qualifying.
Yeah, he was in Group B on Saturday's practice, and for the single lap in his group, he was actually overall was 9th best, about 2.5 tenths back of the 5 car. But he had the second best 10 lap average. It was the 19 and then him. So this is something that, qualifying is hugely important. You want to be up in front, but because of the way these qualifying are now with an impound afterward, do you trim the car out to win qualifying and be on the pole and then adjust later and hope you can adjust it quick enough later? Or do you set the car up to be driven over the whole night long where you can just make your adjustments on your pit stops the way you need to make them? And I think this is something that the team has started to go toward. They got their couple poles earlier in the year. Yep. And it was nice that they did that, but a pole isn't worth what it used to be. It's not the extra point or anything like it used to be. So let's worry more about, how the car is going to race. And, he ends up sixth best in his group for qualifying. So he ends up 11th overall, and the 11 ends up on the pole. And it's the 2 and the 34 are the 2 Fords that make the top 10. So, there are a couple Fords up there that showed a little bit of speed, but once again, I don't know if, like the 34 car, is the 34 car trimmed out for just qualifying and not really worried about what happens during the race, and they're going to fix it best they can during the race. Who knows?
And that's kind of what those teams used to do. So maybe even they are getting kind of back to something like that, because they would really, especially super speedways and some other tracks, you would see cars, from that front row motorsports level qualify high every once in a while. I was a little bit concerned about all the Toyotas, lining up, in the top 10 for qualifying. We'll talk about fantasy racing a little bit later, but that also, led me to starting a whole bunch of Toyotas in my fantasy lineup, which throughout this race looked great, looked like the worst decision of all time, and then circled back to good again. So, something to keep in mind of just Ford's, the last several weeks, we talked about Ryan, outside of winning the All-Star race, has been in a drought in points races from top 10s. He's, narrowly missed the top 10 a couple of times, but Ford's overall had been struggling a little bit. We're not sure horsepower, not sure aerodynamics, not sure just if, Toyota and these Chevrolet teams have found something out that they just haven't found out yet in the Ford camp.
Yeah. So to start the day on Sunday, to the rear, the 7, the 5, the 10, the 41, the 47, the 50. So we got a bunch of unapproved adjustments and so forth. The 11 takes the top lane on the start of the race. Ryan, of course, is in the bottom lane starting 11th. By lap 3, though, he hurries up and gets to the high lane because everything gets stacked up. He's back to 13th at this point. And lap 7 talks about 0 turn in the front tires, and the 9 passes him. He's back to 14th. At lap 11, he does pass the 14 to get back to 13th. And the 23, the 18 are battling for the lead at this point. It's kind of, once again, the Toyotas are up front, and interesting that it's Kyle and Bubba, because they really kind of don't like each other, but like each other. It's kind of a weird thing going on there.
Yeah. It seems like they end up racing around each other a lot. It was cool. Bubba, at the All-Star race and one of these races prior, I think Kansas, where Kurt went to victory lane for 23:11, showing a lot of speed early on in this Coca-Cola 600. And you thought, the 23 car was going to be a factor.
Yeah. But lap 13, Ryan says it's starting to get a little better here. Let's see how it goes, because he's given some feedback about, any kind of adjustment they're going to make. Then we get a caution at lap 17, the 15, the 16, and the 17 all end up in this caution. So Jonathan says we're going to take a small air pressure here to help the turn. They go in 13th. They come out 10th on the first pit stop. But oops. We were speeding in section 6.
Yeah, I know. I texted you immediately after the stop. I'm like, all right, man, +3. And I'd stepped away from the TV for a minute, and then I come back and you're like, yeah, but driver is speeding.
Yeah. So it was something about coming in the box somewhere between like 14 and 11 away, that timing line right there. So he goes tail end along his line. The restart is at lap 21. 18 is leading at this point. Let's see, he's 30th for that restart. And this is kind of cool here at lap, because once we know what's going to happen from the back here. And by the way, in-car camera. And I don't know, sometimes I'll put a picture out there because we put the in-car camera on the big screen up on top. And these kind of situations are awesome for the in-car camera, because TV is not going to follow a guy who's running 30th. They're going to follow the 5-10 guys in the top 10 there. and Ryan just starts coming. Lap 23, he's up to 23rd. I mean, it took 2 laps. He was 7 guys he passed. At lap 24, up to 22nd. Lap 26 passes the 31. He's in the 21st. At lap 28, he's up to 20th. At lap 30, he passes the 34. He's up to 19th. And we get a caution at lap 31 for the 77 car. This is Quickie Yellow. He was 19th, and they did pit 19th, and then come out 18th. The 5 cars penalized, so actually gains a spot on that. It's up to 17th. Restart for the leader. The 18 taking the top. Ryan took the top at lap 38 as this restart, and the top 5 cars stayed out. So that makes this restart one of those restarts where you got fresher tires behind those guys. And like I said, Ryan took the outside lane, row 8. So he was like about 16th for the restart. And in parentheses, I put wow, because from the in-car camera, he got to the outside lane, and in 1 and 2, basically, and he just launched around everybody. He was top of three, but he went all the way to 12th in the first 2 turns.
Yeah, it was completely insane, insane. And you saw guys running that top lane throughout the rest of this race where you could just get a crazy amount of momentum. A little bit risky to run up there, and we saw that for a couple of guys. But on these restarts, yeah, he wasn't afraid to do that to gain some positions over those guys in front of him.
That was crazy launch. Lap 41, he's up to 10th. At lap 44, the 8 does pass him. He's back to 11th. And then at lap 45, we got a caution for the 18. Whoa, the 18. So like I said, cars you didn't even expect are spinning out. He's up to 10th, and the 99 is leading at this point. We have 5 Toyotas in the top 10. They're staying out, and 2 guys, two guys in front pit. So he's P8 for the choose at this point. Leader 99 takes the top. Ryan takes the top. Restart lap 50. He's up to 9th. And at lap 53, he passes the 45. He gets himself up to 8th. And it must have been a pretty good pass, because Josh said, hell yeah, I like that. So, Ryan must have really taken off around that 45 car. At lap 55, the 45 kind of comes back to him. And then we get a caution at lap 60 for the 7 car. So Jonathan says if it's split, we'll stay out. And they do come in. They were pitting 9th, and they come out 10th. There was a penalty for the 5 car. There were 3 cars that stayed out. So this is that point in time where they lost a little bit of position, but it wasn't based on the pit stop. It was actually based on a couple cars staying out. So there were 12 for the cone. The 9 took the bottom. Ryan took the top. And they did a little air pressure and some wedge in the right on this stop. So restart was at lap 67, and he was 10th after 2 laps. At lap 72, he passes the 22 for 9th. At lap 76, he passes the 11 for 8th. At lap 80, he passes the 99 for 7th. Lap 83, the 23 actually passes him. He's back to 8th. And lap 89, they tell him that the 23, the 1, and him are the 3 fastest cars out there. At lap 91, he does pass the 48, gets to 7th. At lap 93, he passes the 24, who was having an issue, and gets to 6th. So we get the 9 does win stage 1, but Ryan does get 6th place stage points there. So pretty good first stage, working his way up through those cars, considering that he was, buried in the back there for a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point in the race, I'm pretty excited. We've seen the pit crew deliver on the stops that they've had to make so far. We've seen Ryan drive up through the field. People, I think, were a little bit down in the Discord chat and on Twitter a little bit because of that speeding penalty. And, now he's not going to get any stage points. Well, that driver of the 12 car kind of showed you that he could rebound from something like that. It got all the way back up there to get 6th place stage points, which these points will be important going forward now. Yeah. But yeah, at least we got something out of the day, and at least got to see an impressive run up through the field in that first stage.
So the Ryan sells him the front still isn't working, and they're pitting in 6th, come out 6th. The 9 takes the bottom. Ryan takes the bottom on this choose. The restart's at lap 106. He's up to 5th. at lap 123, he's, fifth position, and he's the top Ford. At lap 125, get a caution for the 23 car. Ryan is up to fourth at this point. Pitting, he goes in fourth, out third. The 9 is leader, taking the bottom again, and Ryan takes the bottom. So we get a restart at lap 131 in third position. At lap 142, the 45 passes, so he's back to fourth. Then we get a caution at lap 146 for the 2 car. Now, a little bit of confusion on this because Jonathan does say if you can get front row, then stay out. And they did stay out. And almost everyone else pitted behind him. So there wasn't much of a buffer between, the tires and so forth. So, it was good and bad. But on the other hand, it was pointed out, too, that big picture, Jonathan says this is actually probably a good move. And they were basing that on tires. They were given 12 sets of tires to start the race. Some of these teams were actually putting their scuffs on at some point in there because of the fact that they thought they were all going to run out of tires. And I think they got pretty close to it, actually, as the night went on. So restarts at lap 151. Ryan, of course, taking the bottom there. I think the 5 was the other car that stayed out. There was just two of them that were out together. The restart, the 5 does pass Ryan in the first lap there, and he's back to second. At lap 153, the 1 passes. At lap 154, the 48 passes. So the fresh tires start to come a little bit, but if you can hang on long enough, these tires will equalize out too. So
it wasn't so crazy though. Like he was hanging up there. Like these guys weren't just passing them left and right. It was like pass, like you said, a couple of laps go by, another pass, and I was shocked. Quite honestly, I thought at this point he would be, back into the back of the top 10, possibly. And I was hoping for maybe top 15, but yeah, he really hangs tough. And I don't know if that's, good for what the setup in the car was, or he was running the high lane, which I talked about, the high lane giving you a lot of momentum and kind of forcing guys to pass you low. So I think he was putting himself in the right positions here to keep position on the racetrack.
Yeah. They, lap 157, I have him here battling with the 8. So they kind of go back and forth, and it takes 3 or 4 laps before the 8 finally does pass him. So he's back to 5th. And at lap 163, he does hit the wall here. The being on the older tires and sliding around a little bit, he ends up back to 9th at that point, which is, he's sliding around, he's hitting the wall.
It's still not bad. Didn't really lose that many spots.
Didn't lose that many spots that, got the momentum, got it gathered back up. And actually 2 laps later, we get a caution for the 5 car, who was having his worst night ever, as he said. And Ryan's in 9th at this point. So, we come in and we get some tires and,
How about these single car spins? A lot of them kept happening where these guys had to go down into the chicane. And it seemed like, they're preparing for the Roval a little bit later in the year here. You're seeing it on, I think, the front stretch and the back. And I think some of it has to do with a bump that's coming out of Fore, where a lot of them were losing it if they ran that middle line. So, but it was just funny. It seemed like every time they're ending up on a part of the Roval track.
Yeah. Yeah. Jonathan makes a small adjustment to tighten them up a little bit. They're pitting from they lose 1 spot basically to the 4 car here. 21 cars staying out. So he's 22 for the cone. So this is kind of cool because now he's got the fresh tires behind some of these guys. The leader's the 9 car taking the outside. Ryan takes the bottom. We restart at lap 170. He's in 22nd. By lap 175, he's up to 18th. By 178, he's up to 16th. And by lap 182, he's past the 47 car. He's up to 13th. So, there we go. About 12 laps, about 10 spots, pretty easily, fresh tires and faster car. And then we get a caution at lap 186 for the 9 car. Ryan's in 12th. They're staying out, and 8 or so behind him stay out. So they're this time he actually gets a little bit of a buffer.
Talk about the 9 car. The 9 car isn't able to continue on in this race, and they tap the wall. So remember, Ryan hit the wall earlier, and it seems like the next gen cars, composite bodies, so they're not really getting too many tire rubs from hitting the wall. But one thing that we have been seeing all year long is the toe links breaking in these cars. And so if they hit the wall at a very specific angle, it'll bend or break the toe links, and they just can't keep going on. And the 9 car looked perfectly fine. It was scraped up a little bit on the side, but the crew's down there, they get a saw, they're trying to fix that car, and eventually they're not able to continue on in this race. So if there's one weak link, and it's almost literally a link in this car, it are these these toe links and in the rear end and front end of these cars that are breaking. And it's just, man, if they could figure that out. I think Larry McReynolds and some other folks have said that NASCAR has actually already addressed that and beefed them up from where they were earlier in the season. But maybe that might need to be an off-season thing, because that would be the perfect thing if they could just fix maybe that part. These cars would be so much more durable, because we do want to be able to see Ryan or somebody make some wall contact and continue on. And for the most part, we're seeing that. No more cut tires, but sometimes they hasn't well, until a little bit later happened to Ryan, but just in a small contact thing. It's just it had to have been frustrating for the 9 car fans out there to see their driver out of this race from something that didn't seem like that big of a hit.
Right. Single car spin shouldn't necessarily take you out sometimes, but yeah. So this choose the 1 takes the top, and Ryan is in P6 here, taking the bottom. The restart lap 191, and this is where it happens on the front stretch of the restart. He's following the 8 car, and this is something like the in-car camera can show you to some extent. When they push each other on these restarts, they get so close to the guy in front of them, they really can't see anything but the rear window of the guy in front of them. So he's not really able to see the track itself. He's following the guy in front of him and kind of hoping that guy's running a certain line, and they want to stay straight together, because if they don't, somebody's going to get turned. They both clip the grass, the infield AstroTurf, on the way through the tri-oval. They get down to turn 1, and Reddick realizes he's too low, and he wiggles his way up quickly. And by the time Ryan realized what was going on and tried to correct the same thing, it was too late. And there was really nothing he could do at that point to, correct it, overcorrect it, whatever. But the timing of, it's one thing to do this when you're running by yourself. And once again, maybe you can keep from hitting the wall and continue. But he gets sideways basically in front of the field, and just, what do we got? We got the 12, the 4, the 12, the 4, the 11, the 16, the 19, the 21, the 34, the 38, the 45, 24, 6, 23. All involved in one way, shape, or form. I had to go find my computer here to read all the numbers off. I had some of them written down, but not all of them.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about, it's going to happen. These drivers, obviously huge fans of Ryan Blaney, considering we have a podcast for him, but they're going to make mistakes. It's not the first time he's made a mistake and caused a crash. He's caused some crashes on super speedways before. And, like you said, it just really stinks when it happens. He had such a fast car. It happens on this restart where things are happening quickly. I wish, it would have been because sometimes these spins happen and everybody gets by and everything's fine. But in this case, a lot of people on that start are running up high, and he slid up high, and basically everyone just piled into each other. And there was a moment where I thought, just talking about toe links and things where, Ryan's car, because of the composite body, didn't look that bad. But as soon as he's, was able to finally pull away, he kind of looked like he was driving sideways. And from that point, you kind of know it's terminal because of the suspension and stuff breaking. And this takes out a few other cars in the field for the race. We were talking a little bit about Bubba Wallace, who had such a fast car running up front early. Bubba's, had a single car spin earlier that just spun down through the infield in the Roval course and was fine. In this one, he pretty much just spun again, and they come down pit road, and I think they put on some fresh tires. And, from that point, they're technically, because they're in the crash, they're on that the damaged vehicle policy, which you get 6 minutes to fix it. They didn't even spend the full 6 minutes on pit road. But what they do, from what I understand, is they, when this restart happens, they hang back, try to save some tires and stay out of any issues that might happen. But unfortunately, when you come off a pit road and restart, when you're on the damaged vehicle policy, you have 3 laps to make minimum speed. and I think did a caution come out quickly again or something. They didn't make minimum speed, and they had a fairly decent car they could have continued on with, and they're out of the race. And I know it's kind of a loophole or something, they didn't expect. But I'm sure Bubba and the Booty Barker and that 23 team was pretty frustrated, and they've learned a lesson. So, a couple of mistakes there, a mistake by Ryan on the track, mistake by that team in the pits and not understanding the rule book there. Feel bad for all the other, I think the 6 car and some other ones were also out of the race after that incident. Just unfortunate. You can't really make too many excuses. Like you said, you did your best to explain what happened. And that's one thing we try to do on this show, is we just try to give you the facts of what happened in an incident or a call or, a pit stop or something like that. And, let you come up with your own conclusions. But yeah, Ryan made a mistake. He owned up to the mistake in his interview after. He kind of apologized, for a lot of those cars getting torn up. And, we don't want to see that happen this year, but, Ryan's going to get caught up in something, later on this year, I'm sure, and later on into his career where it wasn't any of his doing either. So all I can say, it happens. We'll move on. Luckily got some stage points there, finishing 6th in the first stage, but I think he really could have. And it's unfortunate because, Chase goes out of this race and it's an opportunity for Ryan to gain on him in points if he can just finish out the next 3 stages and doesn't get that opportunity.
Yeah, we get the restart lap 197 with the 1 leading, but the 99 actually passes him before the end of the stage, and the 99 wins stage 2. The rest of the night, you don't want me to go through it in detail or
we can. It was a long, like I said, from the start here, and we knew this going in because of the way these cars handled that. A lot of people are saying, this is going to be a long night. I think last year's race was 4.5 hours or something like that. And people were saying, this one might go another hour, and it does. But there's some red flags along the way. There's some more cautions, some more crashes. And I thought maybe people weren't going to be into all the crashes and cars going out. And like you said, 20 or fewer cars finishing the race. But I think the racing itself was so good that it made up for some of these incidents that happened.
Yeah, in stage 3, we get 1 caution for the 16 spinning off of turn 4, and he causes the 1 caution basically in the whole stage, and so they run the stage 3 pretty clean, and we get the 1 car winning stage 3. So we get 2 Trackhouse cars winning stages in this thing here. Stage 4 is where it's pick up. We get a caution about lap 330 something here with the 8 car losing the left rear tire.
That was bad enough because he knew 10 laps before that something was going wrong, but it's just you're just trying to hang on until the next pit stop or something, and then it just gives way.
Yeah, and then we get the restart with the 1 leading and the 5 on the outside. The 99 goes up the track, the 14 turns, and the 99 sending him sideways across the field. The 99 collects the 38, the 17, who slides through the infield and then flips barrel rolls 4.5 times at the end of the infield grass. It comes to a stop on the roof. Now that was interesting because they had commented earlier in the race about how they put the AstroTurf down there on the infield, and how great it was. And it really was great. But what happened with the 17 had nothing to do with the AstroTurf.
Nope.
They thought it hit a drain or something.
Yeah, not even that.
Didn't hit a drain. But that way it was sliding sideways and the tire blew. And then when the tire blew, something caught. And when it caught, it broke that tire loose. And then it was a piece of the frame, I guess, from underneath there that caught. And then boom, and just start rolling. And it was crazy. It was, thank God people walk away from these things now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can still see the one difference, at least I kind of noticed. And this car did end up pretty damaged, but they've talked about the next gen car being very rigid, and it is very rigid. The composite body doesn't just tear to shreds. So that was one difference is with the old car. Like, I'm thinking of, even going further back, but like Elliott Sadler and some other people, flipping at Talladega and things like that. Those cars used to just rip to shreds. And there wasn't a huge impact for this guy, for the 17. He did get clipped and then spun, quickly. So I think that's part of the reason why But that was my only concern, was just, maybe he took a real hard hit, because not a lot of this car is torn apart. It did take a while to flip it over. I mean, they use kind of a winch and some other processes, but they'll always say, we're in contact with the driver this whole time. If there was a more serious situation, they would have been, moving a lot faster. But I think more for his comfort, they kind of went slow. It can't be too fun hanging upside down like that, but really glad that Chris Buescher was able to walk away for sure.
Yeah, he had the window net down automatically. He was upside down and the window net was down. And that's, the one thing they do to let the safety guys know that they're awake and alert, So yeah, they did a good job of, it seemed like it took a long time, but it really didn't. The red flag was only like 11 or 12 minutes.
Yep.
They went to yellow, and the next restart, the one is leading again. So the 5 passes the one at some point during there. And then, we get the 14 also up there. He passes the one, gets to second. So we got looks like our best cars here. All of a sudden at the end, the 5 car actually starts to join the fray. But right near the end here, the 5 gets loose entering turn 1, and the 14 dives low to make the pass, but gets loose under the 5, and the 14 spins through turn 2 and has flat front tires. So now we got our, we're going toward green, white checker time,
Yeah, it was reminiscent of the Bristol dirt race that I got to see up there in person, where the good part is that Briscoe didn't take out the leader. At Bristol, he took out Reddick, who was going for his first win. Obviously, Larson's won several races and a championship at this point. But I was glad he didn't end up clipping the 5 car, and this really was more detrimental to him.
So we get the first overtime attempt, the 5 leading the inside, and the 1 is on the outside. The 22 is in the second row, and that's the 22, and then you got the 47 on the outside of that second row. So
many 3. Yeah. I mean, the 5, I feel like he can be aggressive at times, but between the 1, the 47, and the 22, like, I didn't know what was going to happen on this restart, because they are going to be all for themselves.
Yeah. So the 5 goes out to the lead. The 3 gets a run off of turn 4 low under the 5 and takes the lead. The 3 takes the lead, but then gets out of shape and checks up and is hooked by the 5. The 3 spins on the front stretch, collects the 5, the 1, the 22, the 41, and the 11 somehow gets underneath all that and prevails as leader, as it was 4 wide on the bottom when the 3 spun.
Crazy. And that run the 3 had was just insane. And I'm not, an RCR fan or Austin Dillon fan or something, but at that moment, I'm like, man, I hope he wins this race, because that was amazing. And as soon as I could even just get that thought out of my head, you see him spin right into the wall, and it's it didn't work out. And I mean, some people were blaming it on him. I mean, I don't know. I feel like he executed the move perfectly.
Yeah.
But when they're 4 wide, coming back, the outside lane was getting a run there, and Larson, I think, bobbled a little bit and just turns them. And then you mentioned Larson said early on in this race, it was kind of a tale of 2 races for him. They played that audio of his crew chief, Cliff Daniels, like giving one of those, halftime speeches that a football coach would give.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty amazing. My favorite part of it was like when he said that one pit stop, the car caught fire. He's like, we were literally on fire at one point in this race, and now we have a shot here to reset. So if you have a chance to go back and listen to that, I thought that was pretty cool. But it just shows you the leadership values that these crew chiefs need to have to kind of reset their drivers. And it worked up until that moment. And you see, another swath of cars. And this is where I was saying early, I looked really great in my fantasy. I started all these Toyotas, and then kind of Chevys and Fords dominate the middle of this race. And here's where that Toyota luck comes into play this year, where the 11 and the 18 and some of these other guys, sneak back through this crash, and they're back here on the front row for this restart.
Yeah, so we get the second attempt at the overtime finish, the 11 leading the inside, the 1's outside, but the 1 has damage. So, he's going to slow that high lane up. The 18 does get to second, and, 11 wins the race. Good night for Denny. That's about all I can say.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, Denny, I don't feel like he did anything. There's a lot of periods of this race where he and Logano were running pretty hard for each other, and I think that stems from what they were doing to each other on pit road as well. But this something Denny Hamlin seems to do. He can hang around, and another thing Denny Hamlin does is he wins big races. 3 Daytona 500s, 2 Southern 500s. And I think I've seen two of his Daytonas, and I've seen one of his Southern 500 victories. And then now finally the current set of crown jewels finishes that off for his resume and wins the Coca-Cola 600. So good for him. Again, not a huge fan or anything, but I was a fan of the race. I wish Ryan would have been able to stick it out all the way to the end here, because I think with the cars that were, still running, he had a decent shot, top 5 or, winning this race. And just unfortunate, but that's what happens sometimes.
This is one of those types of races that Ryan ends up winning. We got goofy carnage. He avoids it. He's patient. And then he takes a shot at the end. And that's the part that really sucks about it, is if he gets through the issue he had, he probably would have been there at the end too with a bunch of those guys. And, I take my chances if he gets to be a top 4 starter on a restart at the end of a race, The
other thing that's kind of funny that happens here, I don't have the finish up right now, but Briscoe and Larson, I think, both end up with top 10 still in this race. The 47 car, I think, extends his top 10 streak to 4 straight. So that's for that JTG team. That's kind of impressive. So, and you see guys like Michael McDowell, I think, finishing up there as well. I think I made a joke at one point. I thought Kaz Gralla was going to get a top 15, but I think he was too far down on laps in that 50 car for the money team. So with the attrition, it was almost, the race was not like a Talladega or Daytona. There were some big crashes. But the finish lineup was very similar to what you see at Talladega or Daytona. So that's our recap of the Coca-Cola 600. Ryan Blaney ends up, even with all that attrition before his crash, he still ends up in the 20s, 29th finish for Ryan and the 12 team. Unfortunately, that doesn't do a lot for them. They slipped 2 positions in the NASCAR Cup Series point standings, just the main standings, not the playoff standings. So the good news, though, is Denny Hamlin's a repeat winner this year. So there's still, 11 winners so far. So Ryan, again, if he wins a race, he'll vault back up to the top of the point standings. And we're hoping that it's not if, it's a when, and just a matter of time. So we had just had the All-Star race at Texas. We were just at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And now for something completely different. The NASCAR Cup Series is headed to Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. Now, this is going to be a familiar track for you NASCAR Camping World Truck Series fans, as they've run at Gateway for several years. It's been one of those tracks that when people are talking about the Cup Series schedule, what markets do we kind of want to go to? What tracks deserve it? And Gateway has been one of those tracks that comes to mind, and they finally get a Cup Series date. It's a little bit of a unique track. If you look at it overhead, it looks like it's shaped like Darlington with, I can't remember if it's flipped as well, but they have, a wide sweeping turn and then a tighter turn. But one thing you were kind of saying is it's a little bit flatter than, so it's shaped like Darlington, but it's not banked like Darlington.
No, it's going to be more like, it's going to race probably more like Martinsville, to tell you the truth, because it's going to be a flatter bank. Hopefully get up underneath somebody before you get to the turn kind of situation. Hopefully it does not end up being one of those shifting tracks, because I feel like it's going to be. It's unfortunate. I think again, we talked about them looking at toe lengths. I think that's the other thing. At some point, maybe this year, definitely in the off season, nobody is a fan of this. Dale Earnhardt Jr. talks about it on the podcast all the time, that he has some of the TV commentators, the drivers like me, I was just so angry after just seeing it happen. Guys shifting at Martinsville, like, just boiled my blood, just because it takes their mind off of racing, and it ruins any kind of run that you could get, when you're trying to make a pass, because the guy in front of you could just shift and take off down the front stretch or back stretch. So please, no shifting. I am a little bit concerned. I'm not sure what the weather is going to be like yet for this week there out there at Gateway, but it was really cold at Martinsville and the racing wasn't great. Hopefully the temperature is a little bit higher out there for this race, especially if people are thinking it might race something like a Martinsville or Phoenix, just to see, because the next gen cars have been great on all the intermediate tracks except for Texas, and great on the super speedways. The short tracks have been a little bit of a problem this year. Do you have any reservations, or you're just kind of in a wait and see mode? Yeah, I just kind of want to see what happens, to tell you the truth. I mean, Ryan actually has a little experience at this track, at least one race there in the truck series. So kind of it's kind of good that because not too many guys will have that, to tell you the truth, in the field. I think 36 cars entered. Gent Wizard back this week, which is always kind of a cool look on the 12 car. So yeah, I just want to wait and see what it looks like. Let's see what practice looks like. Let's see what qualifying looks like. See what kind of weekend we have. I mean, it could be great, just based on having a little more experience there than anybody else.
Yeah, obviously I want him to go out there and sit on the pole and lead every lap and win every stage and win the race. I know that's not, logical thinking and not likely to happen, but it'll be great if it did. You brought up the fact that he does have some experience there. He does have a one truck series start there in 2014 for Brad Keselowski Racing, started 14th and finished 7th. So not too shabby. He didn't set the world on fire or anything, but at least he has seen this track before and not going in completely blind. I'm sure a lot of these guys have been on the simulator for the last couple of weeks or iRacing or something just to try to get familiar with their braking zones and where they can carry momentum and other things through these turns, how to enter the turn and come off, and practice probably some of that shifting that, we're unfortunately probably going to see. So again, if you want to tune into this race, let me give you that information here. It's going to be the Enjoy Illinois 350 this Sunday, June 5th at Worldwide Technology Raceway, or Gateway that it's been known for several years. You can catch this race on Sunday. Let me pull that up here. 2:30 p.m. Eastern time.
No, I have
2:30 p.m. Central local time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Practice and qualifying is going to happen on Saturday. And or am I just wrong on everything?
Well, they've got practice on Friday, qualifying on Saturday.
Oh, that's confusing.
Which is totally weird.
Seems weird. That's what I was going to say. Or at least I'm wrong, but I wasn't.
I'm on NASCAR.com.
Yeah, that's weird.
And it's 5:00 for practice on the 3rd, and then on the 4th at 11 a.m. qualifying, and then the race is on the 5th at 3:30, and it's the Enjoy Illinois 300.
Well, all I have to say is
240 laps, 300 miles.
I get most of my information from from a website, and they're letting me down a little bit, but it is weird. I mean, it's weird to have that stuff split.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
I'm sure the spotters and the teams are enjoying this. Yeah.
Because I have an extra day for what, now Josh will be doing double duty with the truck series, but some of those guys that, only spot for one thing, now they got to be there for 3 days instead of 2. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if they did qualifying the morning of.
No, I mean, that wouldn't be too bad. I know when you're at the track, I mean, if you're there for the race that happens on Saturday or something, it's a little bit better to have some more entertainment. One other thing to mention too is that the NASCAR Xfinity Series is going to be in Portland. So this is kind of a split weekend for NASCAR. And I know that's going to make our Northwest native Nicole Stellanarius, who does the Scanner Live tweet, happy, because she always jokes about being in NASCAR Siberia, and finally at least one series of NASCAR is coming out to visit her. So I'm sure she's going to be out at the track this weekend, and wish her well, and hopefully she sees some good racing from the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
All right, Steve. So we've previewed what we could have Gateway. We don't have a lot to go on except for Ryan's one truck series start. So we've looked at the future, but let's take one more step back into the past here, because it was an important week in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, because I'm happy to report
because you did good.
I did. And there were points of this race where it didn't look so good for me. I've said it like 3 or 4 times now. Toyotas look great at the beginning, not so great toward the middle. And they survived the carnage and the attrition to help me to a really good result here in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. So let me go through. Now, I said that I was going to be Toyota heavy, and I was very Toyota heavy, except for one. I had the defending champion Kyle Larson in my lineup. So lineup was as follows: Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, and Denny Hamlin. So really the only one there that didn't work out as well for me was Kurt Busch, and I had Ryan in the garage. So let's take a look at my featured matchups too. I picked Kyle Busch over Larson. That was great. I picked Martin Truex Jr. over Chase Elliott. That was right. I picked Ryan Blaney over Kurt Busch. That was right, just barely. This is back of the field here. Ryan finished 29th, Kurt 31st. And then I've swept the featured matchups. I think this is what pushed me over the top. Daniel Suarez over Bubba Wallace. Again, close. Two cars that didn't finish this race, 25th and 28th. So that vaulted me up in the standings for just this week. What were you looking at for your starting lineup?
Okay, well, I split the matchups. We got 2 and 2. I had Denny Hamlin, and then I had Byron and Bowman, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex. My only mess up here is I had Tyler Reddick in the garage. So if I would have taken him out of the garage for the right guy, I've been about a 40-point swing. But yeah, who knows? When those things happen and all those crashes happen and so on and so forth, I wasn't really paying attention to my fantasy lineup. We kind of watched the 12 car go off the track, and I was watching the in-car camera because they pulled it all the way to the garage. It was like watching them get out of the car and everything. So yeah, I wasn't paying attention to my fantasy lineup at that point.
I wasn't even sure where I was supposed to, when you could change people out here. Could you go all the way to the end of the third stage, or was it still halfway?
I think it was probably still the second stage.
Still the second stage. Yeah. I didn't even mess around. I was like, there's going to be so much carnage in this race, and I always have Ryan in the garage, so I just kept him there, and that worked out well. So let's take a look at this, and let's run through the top 10 in points earned this past week at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I think I see a couple new names in here, including my own. But in first, Bud King with 227 points. In second, 723, 217 points. In third, Big Burn, 203 points. In fourth, Skeet 22, 194. In fifth, Eric D15, 193. Also tied for fifth, Math Mom 4. Here's mine right here. Seventh place finish, one of my highest of the season. Team Blaney host Adam, 191 points. So not too shabby and not too far off the lead, 30 plus points out of first, but not too bad. Tied for eighth here, we have Joe Lopez 1 and Vance 12 with 188 points. And rounding out the top 10, we have the defending champion in Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing with 186 points. I'm trying to find you here. Sometimes I usually look ahead of time just to see, but man, I can't even find you. You're down. you were down
29.
All right, so not too bad. I assumed some things here, and I scrolled down to the 40s. So 29th for Mezz 12.
And if I make the swap that I should have made, would have been 40 points difference, and I would have been in the top 5. So my mistake from not paying attention, but it's my mistake.
I have to tell you, I'll get to me toward the end here, but the race for 25th on back is real tight. So me just having a couple of good weeks here has vaulted me up into the standings here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, we're getting closer again. So let's take a look at the overall league standings for the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, and we actually have a new leader out front this week. But she's always been a contender all year long. We have Math Mom 4 in the first position, 2,664 points. In second, Bulldog 0277, who had the lead for a little while there, 2,646 points. In third, again, the defending champion, Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, 2,632 points. Fourth, the Dalai Lama 4, 2,623. Fifth, Eric D15, 2,609. Sixth, Fry Gal 12, 2,608. Seventh, Moose Hunter 1960, 2,599. Eighth, Two Bushes, No Johnsons, 2,587. Ninth, Blaney Kicks, 2,566. And rounding out the top 10 in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League after the Coca-Cola 600 is Joe Lopez 1, 2,554 points. When it comes to our teams, you are in the 24th position, 2,437 points, and I've closed this gap. So we have Alyssa C in between us in 25th, and my team up to 26 in the standings, 2,423 points. So not too far behind. I think I would have to say this might be, especially this far into a season, the closest we've ever been. You're usually way far ahead of me, and sometimes I can do well during the playoffs, but I'm pretty proud of hanging tough with you this season.
Yeah, I still don't have this next gen car figured out yet.
You're still working on setups at the shop. You got to
That's
do
right.
some more simulation. Run some more
Yeah.
simulation.
I can't get myself a top 10 start, let alone a top 10 finish.
So again, we are full right now. I might be able to bump a few people out if they haven't participated in a little while, and it looks like there are a couple that I might be able to remove here if anybody else wants to join in. Welcome to Jordan Daniels, who joined in. We always say, you can just pop in anytime during the season, have some fun. Jordan's a member of the Team Blaney Discord chat that, follows along during the race, and we kind of chat through the ups and downs of all the races. And Jordan's in that. And he mentioned a couple weeks ago that he finally broke down and joined the fantasy league. So welcome, Jordan. You're in the 96th position. You can only go up from here. So heading into Gateway, an unknown. I have no idea who to put in my lineup. It's not necessarily, a real intermediate track. It's kind of flat. Normally I'd say somebody like Denny Hamlin, who does have some momentum here and is usually good at a place, like Martinsville, although he's horrible at Martinsville. So man, I don't know. I don't know who to put in.
Yeah, this is just, I got to watch practice just to see who handles the track well to begin with, and then watch qualifying and see who gets themselves to the front. I think it becomes a track position race. I really do. Just, so whoever can be up there and has the right strategy to stay up there, so, I mean, just want to see who starts top 10, I guess, and maybe make my picks from there. I really don't know if it's going to matter a lot about aero or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm with you. And full disclosure, you want to know when I made my picks this week? National anthem.
Nice,
I
nice.
remembered I was right down to the end there, and that's when I just dropped all the Toyotas in, because watching practice and qualifying, they were fast. So I said,
yeah,
I'm going to throw the defending champion Larson in the lineup, keep Ryan in the garage like he's been almost all season for me, and do them now. So I had one of my best weeks ever, and I was, a couple of minutes away from forgetting to do it. So but it doesn't matter. I got those picks in. So
yeah,
exciting for me. One other thing to note that we didn't talk about was, and he's been in the booth for a couple of races this year, but Ryan was part of the NASCAR Xfinity Series broadcast when they did the drivers only broadcast. Did you get to catch any of that over the weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty funny because basically within the first 5 minutes, they start picking on the window net situation. And there was a restart where somebody did something on a restart, and you pointed out quickly to me that he said thank you.
And he said thank you. Yeah, it was about lane choice, and it took me back.
And I was like, yeah, that sounds familiar.
Was that Michigan?
It was Michigan.
It was Michigan last season. Yeah, one of our, the sound bites we play from time to time on there was, they left me bottom, and I said thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So very familiar. Always a fun thing. I mean, it can get a little bit hectic sometimes. The guys are inexperienced. Kevin Harvick is the last couple of years been leading the booth, and I thought, as a whole, and Ryan and Joey play really well together. So
yeah,
I thought it worked out great.
No, actually, that's the funny part is they do a really good job together. They're really concentrating hard on what they're doing, and they do a good job together. There was somebody pointed out at one point where Harvick and Logano were commenting on a pass for the lead, and the director had chosen some camera angle of some car going down pit lane or something.
Yes.
Who was some sort of, who knows what position that car was in, but the pass was happening on the backstretch, and Logano made the comment like, what you would see right now is, it's like, wow.
Yeah. That made the rounds on social media. Yeah. That was interesting. I think at one point Harvick's even heard in the background, like, hey, can you guys switch to the battle on the backstretch here? That's going to be for the race lead. Yeah.
The race lead. So, that tells you how because TV is not easy. You got a guy in your ear telling you one thing, and you're trying to interact with the people next to you. And traffic wise, in that situation, Harvick is the lead. He's not an analyst; he's the lead. So he's playing traffic director. And if you notice, most of the time they direct traffic, Joey, then Ryan.
Yeah.
They have it kind of lined up that way. So all that's going on, and yet, Kevin's doing a good enough job to be able to tell the people in the booth, what are we doing here? We got to, we should be showing the leader. So yeah, they worked really well together. It was kind of cool. Ryan has done that broadcast before as a pit reporter. But in the booth, he's pretty smooth.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting. The booth, I think it might be a little bit easier, maybe not. I mean, I've never done anything like that specifically outside of radio before. But the pit reporter's job, man, has to be one of the hardest jobs all day long. And they had Tyler Reddick and they had the third Team Penske teammate down there in Austin Cindric. And I don't know how many people even caught it. Almost every time they went to Austin, he embedded some sort of a joke into his coverage that I thought it was kind of funny. You don't really see a lot of Cindric out in the media or anything too much since, like the Penske Files or when with BKR trying to win, most popular driver, you saw a little bit. So I thought it was kind of funny to see him and showcase his personality a little bit. But yeah, he's kind of got that Matt Kenseth style dry sense of humor and slipping in pretty much a joke every single time. Even when he was interviewing guys coming out of the care center, he still was able to slip in some jokes here and there when he knew they were okay. So
yeah.
But yeah, I can't remember if NBC does any of the drivers only stuff or not. But Fox has been doing it for the last several years. I know. What was it? Was it Pocono when Ryan won his first race? I think he actually was a pit reporter on the drivers only race.
Yeah.
That for the Xfinity Series race that I think was it Keselowski won.
Keselowski won it, and then the next day,
Ryan turns around, wins the Cup race, and they let Keselowski go into victory lane and interview him after his win, which was great. That was an awesome moment. So big thumbs up for those drivers only things. I know there's some fans out there that they miss their traditional Adam Alexanders and other people that are in the booth for those races, but I thought it was just fine, and just another opportunity for them for Kevin, who's in the late stages of his career and has already kind of said maybe the booth is somewhere he wants to go in the future. New TV deal coming up, so even there might be more opportunities with other networks to do that. So he's kind of testing the waters there. And for Ryan and Joey, I mean, Joey's a guy that's super aggressive on the track and sometimes can be a little bit difficult for people to like, but Joey does radio and Joey does a lot of these TV spots, and I think it kind of opens up his personality to the fans that they might not see, and maybe have a little bit more of a softer side for Joey, even though he might be moving you out of the way on the track. So always good to see. And Ryan's always great too. He's really come to his own, and he's done several races this year, and this was another one, and it's great to see. So we'll try to tip people off anytime we see that. But yeah, lots of Ryan media this week between doing the Xfinity race and then also having the in-car camera, which is really cool to see during the race. So we've gone through our Coca-Cola 600 recap. We've gone through our fantasy report there. We've talked about Ryan in the booth. One other really cool thing we just wanted to bring up. And first of all, it's just a huge thank you, I think, from you and me and our wives, and the other friends that got to experience this with us. But if you listen to the interview that we had with Emma Conley and Leah Reeves from the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, we were leading up to this event. They were having the Driving for Good charity golf event at the Topgolf in Charlotte, and they announced on that interview they're inviting Steve and I up there. So a couple of months have gone by. We've done our best to try to help promote this event. We've luckily got to see a lot of you guys that participated in the Blaney Wall of Fame that was at the event. That was really cool to see. But yeah, I think just from our hearts to them, thank you for inviting us to that event. And thank you for all the hard work that they really put into making it happen.
Yeah. The girls, you have no idea, how big their foundation really is, but the faces that you see behind the scenes setting up this event and putting it together, and all the people we got to see while we were there, it just made it even more special. We get our couple minutes, of course, with Ryan and the social media stuff today. Was actually, we had a picture up that we got to take with Ryan, our group, and everything. Patty Auber, I do want to thank her because she made sure that we had all our accommodations that we needed to get when we got there and everything. And then I want to thank Josh Williams and Brittany Zamora too, because they reached out to us the day before and kind of made sure that we were set up for the whole day going into the event, and just some great memories, some things we're never going to forget from those couple of days being down there in Charlotte. Like I said, we were in a booth down near the one end, and some other people were up, the celebrities, who, they kind of had a little more secluded area so that, because, didn't want to bother everybody, but Dale Jr. was there. Name a couple other people that you saw.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, I was talking to Steve about this before. It's like, we don't want to just name drop the people that were there, but I think what it shows you is just the respect that a lot of these people have for Ryan Blaney, and his causes here, trying to support UPMC and this Fund a Fellow program. So you did have major names coming to this event, like you mentioned. Dale Earnhardt Jr., teammate Joey Logano was there, Daniel Hemrick, who's a former Cup and NASCAR Xfinity Series driver, Cole Swindell, who's a country music superstar, was at this event. Some members, former members of Carolina Panthers or current members of Carolina Panthers were at this event. Executives from Speedway Motorsports, pit crew members and other Team Penske members, were there supporting Ryan. So for me, it wasn't necessarily, it was cool, obviously, to be in an event where you're, within shouting distance of some of these people. But for me, it was just kind of heartwarming to see, big names like that come and support something that Ryan is putting on. Ryan's a young driver in this sport. Obviously, his family has some connections through Dave running in the sport for so long, but it was just amazing to see the respect that they have for Ryan and the Blaney family to come out and support something like this.
Yeah, it just was a wonderful event. I've helped run a couple charity golf outings in my area here years ago, and they're not easy to do. You're trying to organize people, trying to get them to do certain things by certain times, get them in certain position. And I've never been to a Topgolf before. So it was really interesting how the game was played and what kind of things we had to do. And, we had, like I said, we invited Jerry Mariotti and his wife Kirsten there, and they had a great time. They're old, he's an old Blaney-ac from the old Quickest Lap days. And
they're winners too, right?
Yes, they actually were one of the winners of one of the charity auctions. They won for the 600 for what was it, a skybox, whatever. So
it was like a sweet experience at the Coca-Cola 600. So they were obviously in Charlotte early in the week, and they turned around and drove back. But it was awesome. We invited them to come down, and then they turn around and show their gratitude by bidding and winning an item in the auction. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, it was really cool. And the golfing was fun. We weren't there to win the event.
Jerry was close though. Jerry was pretty close for
Jerry's pretty good. Yeah, he kept us on track. But it was so great to watch my wife swing a club. She hadn't done it since high school, and she was hitting those targets and outscoring me, so. And I'll take it,
Yeah, I think that was happening a lot for us. Like, we had the distance, but we weren't always accurate. And they didn't have the distance, but they were a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, they just kept putting it on the target. So God bless them. But we all had such a great time. Like I said, Ryan came down, take a picture with all of us. And that was great to have that moment or two. And a couple of guys, like I said, we got a chance to BS with a couple of guys, and that was nice to do. We got to meet Jonathan, even Ryan's crew chief. So it was real nice, like you said, to see how many people who want to be a part of things like that, and want to help foundation and help the Fund a Fellow program the way they did. I really said a couple of posts online when thanking people today that I hope it was a success. I'm pretty sure it was. Just from what we saw physically there. And I really hope that it's something I can do again in the future, because I really want to help them any way we can, just like we do on this podcast all the time. Anytime they have some sort of new event or something like that, let us know. We'll help them as best that we can, from where we're at.
Yeah. So again, like I said from the outset here, thank you and I'm going to probably leave some people out because I don't know everybody behind the scenes, but thank you to everything to set up this event that was done by Aaron Blaney, Patty, Leah Blaney Reeves, Emma Blaney Conley, Lisa Blaney, who was out there as well, checking people in. Dave and Dale were there, I think, helping people set up and some other things. So when they talk about this being the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, pretty much everybody in that family stepped up to help to get this event off the ground, make sure everything was running smoothly throughout. I think I mentioned to Leah in a message the day after, like, hopefully they had some time to catch their breath, because those folks were working really hard So it kind of shows the dedication that they have to this foundation and to supporting their causes. So like I said, from the bottom of our hearts, from us and our wives and Jerry and his wife as well, thank you for having us. And like Steve said, hopefully it was an amazing success, and we look forward to helping and supporting them in anything they do in the future. So, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. I want to thank everyone once and again for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just check out our debut episode from our very first season that dives deep into how we became fans of the Blaney racing family. You can interact with us on Twitter and Facebook at Team Blaney, and on Instagram at team.blaney. And finally, we were just talking enough. We want to encourage you to help support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. This organization that's championed by Ryan and his family supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through their Fund a Fellow program. You can find out more about the foundation online at ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or on all of their very active social media channels. For my co-host Steve Mezz, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney Podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Good night, Dublin.